My name is Sara Smith. I'm a professor of history at American River College. Today's date is June 1st, 2023. Okay, let's start off by establishing some of the basics. What's your full name? What are your pronouns? And what's your date of birth?
My full name is Diego Leonardo Martinez. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. What else did you ask me?
What's your date of birth?
September 22nd, 1991.
So how old does that make you?
I am 31. I will be 32 this September.
So tell me a little about yourself. What are your interests and hobbies? What do you like to do?
Hobbies. I have too many hobbies. Let's see. Formerly, I did a lot of creative stuff like art, music. I still do, but lately I'm more into like martial arts, video games. I'm still into crafting stuff. I've been trying to get my airbrush to work lately. I've been struggling with that. So still a lot of art.
So where did you grow up and where do you live now?
Well, I was born in Chicago and I spent most of my childhood there. I lived there until I was around 2, and then I moved to a town about an hour away called Cicero, and I lived there until I was about 9. Uh, about 9 or 10. Moved to Kansas for about 7 months, and then finally moved and settled here to California when I was like, I think my family moved to Woodland, which is here in the Sacramento area. I think it was a couple of days after my 11th birthday.
And that's where you've lived since?
Yep.
Okay, where do you currently attend college and what do you study?
I'm currently attending college at Sacramento City College. I've been studying computer science. At first I was studying art, but I decided to go another route.
Why is that?
I guess I got older and wiser and kind of realized that there wasn't a lot of financial security in art. And although I still love doing art and still kind of want to pursue something like as a hobby, art-wise, I just would rather do computer science.
Do you attend school part-time or full-time?
Part-time.
And how come you attend part-time?
Well, I was attending full-time, but one, it's a little too stressful for me, and two, there's like some rule at my apartment complex where I can't be a full-time student and live at that apartment complex because it's federally subsidized, so I can only be a part-time student.
Seems frustrating.
It is.
So can you tell me how you identify with regard to your social identities, broadly speaking? So race, ethnicity, sexuality, gender, disabilities, religion, and so on. A lot.
I would say that I identify as disabled, Chicano, non-binary, transgender. Prior to discovering that I was transgender, I identified as lesbian, but more recently, I am not sure if I want to label my sexuality.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I went on hormones about a little over 3 years ago, and I found that some people, after they transition, that tends to hormones tends to affect who they are attracted to. So I'm finding that I might be one of those people. So I'm not really sure what to label my sexuality as at this point.
So you mentioned that you're non-binary and trans. So what does that mean to you?
I would say that being non-binary and trans means that I don't feel trapped by the box that is gender. That's the best way I can describe it.
So what does masculinity mean to you, and how do you think you would compare it to cis masculinity?
Well, I think masculinity is up to the individual to define. Um, kind of how femininity is up to the individual to define. To me, it means strength, but that's not saying that masculinity is uniquely strength, because femininity could also be strength, you know.
Would you distinguish your masculinity from cis masculinity in any way?
I would say that cis masculinity could be toxic at times. I just think of like my dad's masculinity growing up. That was very toxic.
Anything else you want to say about that?
Not at the time.
Okay. So if you feel comfortable, would you talk some about your coming out experience or experiences? What was the process like of figuring your identities out?
I kind of just realized I was trans when I started hanging out with another friend who was trans, and I started noticing some similarities between us. I think some comment they made about the way clothes fit on them or something, it was just resonated with me very well, and yeah, that was mainly it. And I think prior to that, I just kind of think like I can't believe I didn't see that before.
So when was this? When did you figure out that you were trans?
Probably when I was 26, so not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. And then prior to that, you said you identified as a lesbian.
Yes.
When did you come out as lesbian? If you don't mind talking about that.
I'm not entirely sure when I came out. I just kind of like it's something I realized when I was very young, and then it just kind of like snowballed.
Oh, like young, like a teenager?
Yeah, like 12. So very young.
So when you came out, where did you, or when you realized your identities, did you come out to your friends and your family? And how did they respond?
I came out to my friends first. My friends were okay with it. My family, it's always kind of been one of those things that like everyone kind of knows about it, but nobody really acknowledges or like says anything about.
So when did you have a moment where you told them that you were either lesbian previously or trans?
A very awkward moment, yes.
Do you care to elaborate on that?
I think I just completely blocked it out.
Would you, like when you say that there was a very awkward moment, are you talking about one of your parents, both of your parents, other family members?
Probably just like one of my parents, and then they just kind of like dismissed it and swept it under the rug.
Okay. So do you feel like when you're around parents or maybe other family as well that you don't bring up your identity as trans and you try not to talk about trans things?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Um, I think it's just awkward for both of us. Like, one, I don't think they want to hear about it, and well, actually, I think that's the main reason.
Does it ever feel like, how do you feel about that when feeling like you can't bring up the fact that you're trans or what's going on in the world of trans people?
It's extremely annoying. I wish like my family were more like open about it. You know, it's more like the older generation of relatives, like you know, my cousins and people my age, they're all fine with it. But it's like, you know, like when you get to like aunts or mother or uncles, they're not.
Do you think there's sort of a lack of understanding about what it means?
Probably.
Okay.
There's definitely some like generational and like cultural differences, you know.
Mhm. When you say generational and cultural differences, can you elaborate?
Like for them, it's more like the elephant in the room. Like it's kind of taboo. Like they don't want to talk about it, you know. Like it's very like hush hush. Like you just don't acknowledge it.
Mhm. And what does that have to do with culture, do you think?
That's just how they were raised, you know.
So where did you find support and affirmation as you came out?
Mostly in my circle of friends and then some cousins and stuff.
Do you have a circle of friends that's queer as well, queer and trans?
Some of them, not all of them. It's a mixture.
Do you feel like your family or your culture has any expectations around femininity and masculinity that you have to try and navigate in some way?
There probably is, but for the most part, I've come to ignore it. Or yeah, I don't really live up to what those expectations are. I kind of live by my own rules at this point, or I question or challenge them.
Do you think, whatever those expectations might be, do you think that, or might have been, do you think that might have influenced your coming out process, like how old you were when you came out, etc.?
Possibly,
It's hard to say.
yeah.
So you came out as trans at 26, as non-binary and trans. Wait, did you come out as trans and non-binary at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did it feel like emotionally to have figured out your identity? Do you feel happy?
Yeah, I think that there's people who never really question that part of themselves. You know, they just kind of go with what they've been told, like for their whole lives, and that's, you know, it might not be, and that's kind of sad.
Do you feel empowered in your identity as non-binary and trans?
Definitely.
How so?
Well, like I said, like there's people who never question that part of themselves. Like I already figured it out, so.
So did religion play a role in your life growing up?
Uh, I would say that it did. My family was very religious when I was little. Mostly like my dad's part of the family. He's not really in the picture anymore, but he was very religious. We would go to church every Sunday. And then I don't know. He got mentally ill, and we mostly, for the most part, just stopped going to church.
Oh, your family stopped going to church?
Yeah.
Do you identify as religious today?
No.
Do you have any, like, do you identify as like atheist or agnostic or just not religious?
Just not religious.
And what religion did you grow up in?
Catholicism.
Did that have a sort of shape how you acted in the world? Did that shape your sort of experiences growing up, do you think? Especially with regard to your sexual orientation and gender identity?
I would say that I feel like my worldview was very limited as a child. And then as I got older and I started taking like world history courses in school and I started learning about other religions, it was just like I realized the universe was a lot bigger than I had originally been taught. You know, like, what are all these other religions I haven't heard about? um, so it kind of shaped my growing up in that sense.
Okay. Do you think it, like, did it shape your ideas or your feelings about sexuality and gender at all?
Maybe a little bit. Um, you know, in Catholicism, everybody grows up with that story of, what is it, Sodom and Gomorrah. So that pretty much is a little freaky to hear about when you're growing up. But then, you know, as I got older, it was like, well, that's just a story.
And when you say as you got older, do you mean like when you were a teenager?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's just a Bible story. There's like tons of stories in the Bible. You know?
So I think you said you were disabled, right?
Yes.
Can you elaborate some about your disabilities? How they impact you? What they are and how they impact you?
I was diagnosed with major depression when I was about 14 years old. And I've struggled with suicidal ideation for a good chunk of my life. So I think about the last year and a half of my high school, about the last year and a half of high school, I was put in a special ed school with just like, it was like a classroom of 10 students for emotionally disturbed students, because regular high school wasn't really equipped to like handle my mental health problems. I guess when you're when you are struggling to get out of bed in the morning, or contemplating whether you really want to go on with life, things like homework or going to school kind of aren't really a priority in your life. So I was really struggling with school at the time. I think the main thing about my disability is that people seem to misunderstand is when they think of a person with disability, is they expect to see someone in like a wheelchair or in crutches. So I guess it's a little hard for people to wrap their head around it, like how I'm disabled in a sense. Like, I think I remember telling somebody once that I was put on disability, and they're like, how, you're not hurt or anything? It's like, well, like, not all disabilities are visible to the naked eye.
How do you think your disabilities affect you now on a daily or weekly basis?
Well, they've gotten easier to manage, my depression has gotten better, but it's still like something that's always going to be there. Um, like there's still days where I'm just like getting out of bed at like 3 in the afternoon, or struggling to turn in my homework on time because like I just want to sleep, or my apartment's a mess because uh, you know, I don't have the energy to clean my apartment or take a shower. Stuff like that. But at the very least, I'm not struggling with suicidal ideation every single day, which is like a major improvement. I can at least manage to go to school now, which is like better than what it was in high school.
So, do you think your experiences sort of shaped your mental health issues? Like when you say suicidal ideation, do you think was anything going on for you that helped to lead to those thoughts?
To help, did you say to help relieve those thoughts? Or?
No, like sort of lead to them. Like what was that something going on in your life that?
Sort of, but I had a pretty chaotic childhood, I guess. I know I like smile and joke around a lot because I use humor to kind of cope with a lot of my misfortune, but I did have a pretty chaotic, childhood. I had some experiences with abuse and stuff. So, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about that?
I guess the depression and stuff is also a symptom of PTSD. I guess I didn't mention that. The disability is also, I also have post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. So a lot of mental health problems.
Does that affect your, like how you're a student today at SCC?
Yeah. I like receive accommodations to help me finish my homework and assignments, but I get it done.
What kind of accommodations do you receive? Or how do you get those accommodations?
Through the Disabled Students.
DSPS?
Yes, DSPS. I forget what it stands for. Disabled Students something.
Programs and services.
Yes. Mainly the only accommodation I mostly get is just extra time with like doing exams. That's the main accommodation I need because I don't know. I have that tendency where like I know all the information, but then when I'm put on the spot, my mind just goes blank.
Do you also get accommodations with regard to deadlines? Anything like that?
I did try asking for them, like for extra time to turn in assignments, but I was told that they do not provide that accommodation. So, no. Somehow I still get it done though, so.
Yeah. Do you tell faculty sometimes, your professors, that you might need more time, and are they accommodating?
Yeah. They're pretty good with it.
Okay. Have you had any issues where you feel like you needed to be accommodated and you couldn't get the accommodation?
I guess sometimes with like math, I guess, like they're very like, you gotta turn this in on time. God, I hate math.
I can relate. So, is there anything you think you would like to, like, if you could tell your professors anything about how you think students with your disabilities should be accommodated, What would you want to tell them?
Um, um, I don't know, just that sometimes we need extra time with the assignments. I mean, I think I was told that in order to solve the problem, to just like uh, get an early start on the assignments, and it's like, well, I'm already doing that. Like, I still need extra time.
So maybe more understanding.
Yeah.
So your parents are immigrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they from?
Jalisco, Mexico.
Can you talk some about your experience growing up in an immigrant family?
Um, let's see. Neither one of my parents made it past elementary school. Um, they didn't really speak English much. I think my mom took an ESL course when I was younger, but for the most part, it was just my older brother and I who learned English when we started elementary school. So for the most part, we had to translate a lot if either of my parents needed translating for something. Um, they found work wherever they could that like uh, things like waiting tables, a lot of custodial work, that kind of thing.
So do you think that the fact that your parents were immigrants shaped how they responded to coming out at all?
Maybe like culturally.
What do you mean?
Kind of like I mentioned earlier, some cultural differences probably shaped their responses. Well, like my mom's responses. My dad's not really in the picture anymore.
So growing up, did you, or in the present day, you experience discrimination or harassment based on your identity as Chicano?
Mm, I wouldn't really say so, no.
How do you think it shapes your experiences, your identity?
Um, I think it shapes the way like my family reacts. Like I said, cultural differences.
Um, so your parents didn't, you said, didn't make it past elementary school.
Yes.
Did you have a hard time navigating school sometimes, or finding support to help you sort of navigate school and be a good student?
Sometimes, yeah. I mostly asked my older brother because he always like had already gone through it once. You know, he was usually like 2 grades ahead of me.
And you're a first generation college student, right?
Yes,
How has that been for you?
it's been okay.
Do you feel like there's a learning curve there, or you have to sort of sometimes it can be hard to figure things out?
Yeah, but like I said, like I always ask my older brother if I need anything. He's always like he's been through things already. So if I ever need help, I ask him or I find someone who can help.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you grew up working class,
Yes.
and you talked some about what your parents did for a living. So did your family struggle financially growing up?
From time to time, yes.
Mm-hmm. And what does that mean to you from time to time? Like, what was it like?
Well, it would vary depending on like uh, like I said, my dad became mentally ill, so after that he was disabled, and it was just my mom who was sole breadwinner for the family of you know 3 kids and 2 adults.
Did you ever have any insecurity with regard to housing or food insecurity, things like that?
Probably food insecurity, or I don't know. My mom didn't really talk about it, but I know that she struggled with it. You know.
You can sense the sort of the stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she didn't really make it known, but it was obvious to us.
And so I know you lived in different places growing up. You mentioned Cicero how long were you in Cicero again?
About close to a decade, I think.
Okay. Were you in an area that was like, what was the class status of the area that you were in? Was it mixed? Was it low income?
I'm not really sure. I was a kid at the time, so that wasn't like the kind of thing I paid attention to at the time.
Yeah, I think sometimes upon reflection, you can see, you're like,
There was definitely a lot
Yeah.
of gang violence, so maybe low income.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your current class status?
Low income.
Okay. And do you work for a wage?
Currently unemployed, but I will be starting a job soon.
Oh, you're starting as a mental health care worker, right?
Yes.
What will that involve?
Helping people who are struggling with mental health, with the wellness process, running groups, maybe.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
Do you know what your pay is going to be and how many hours you're going to work?
I'm not sure how many hours. I know it's part-time and it's, I think, $17.99 per hour.
So do financial stressors ever make it difficult for you to concentrate on your schoolwork?
No, I think I manage.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were homeless at one point in your life. Can you talk a little bit more about that experience?
I would say when my family and I first moved to California here, we were homeless. We weren't like living on the streets. We were just like couch surfing on my uncle's couch, but we didn't have like our own place, so technically we were homeless for about a few weeks until we found our own place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk about education some.
All right.
Can you tell me a little bit about your educational journey from high school to the present? It's a big question, I realize.
Yeah, I was not a very good student in high school, as I mentioned before, because I was struggling with mental illness. So school was kind of on the back burner there. I had a lot of failing classes. I'm pretty sure I skipped a lot of classes. I was a terrible student. And then, like I said, I went to a special ed high school with just like 10 students. And I did better because our expectations were significantly low. I think we had video games and guitars in the classroom, and yeah, we mostly slacked off. We didn't do much of anything in the class, and I think maybe like 2 months before the graduation date, my teacher was like, yeah, you're going to have to go to summer school, or you're going to have to come back next year. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I like went home and like crammed everything I was supposed to do, and like I was supposed to be doing like the previous 4 years or something in like the last 2 months of school. And I think at that point I kind of realized I was a lot more capable of a student than I had given myself credit, because I did everything like in 2 months. And I was like, huh, okay. But anyway, managed to finish everything. And then, I don't know, I think I was supposed to pick up my diploma from like the high school, but I never did that because I didn't really care at the time. And then when I finally went to try to pick up my diploma, they were like, yeah, you're a couple credits short. So I had to go to adult ed to finish that up. So I guess I didn't graduate after all.
When did you realize that?
It was like a couple years afterwards when it was like too late to actually go back to school and do it. So I had to literally go to adult ed because I was too old to go to high school at that point.
It sounds kind of like a bad dream.
It really felt that way. I was like, this cannot be happening. So I finally got my diploma like 4 years after the graduation date that I was supposed to have it. And by then I was like, I could have just done high school all over again. Anyway, I finally got the stupid diploma from adult ed, and I think my mom automatically swiped it and said mine or something, and like hung it up on a wall or something. Yeah, I took some time after that, or I think I had tried to go to. I think I had tried to take some college courses, and that's why I had tried to pick up my diploma or something, because I wanted like to have it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I did better in college. I was actually trying, and my mental health was a little more stable. So I was a better student in college than I was in high school.
When you were in high school, were you out as queer?
Not really, no.
Okay. Was there any queer life, like student life, queer community in high school?
They had a gay straight alliance club, but they didn't really do much at the club. I think they had potlucks every now and then, and I think someone wrote an article about us in the newspaper saying that we were like a devil club or something ridiculous.
Oh, so you were involved in the GSA?
Not really. I think I just like showed up to lunch and like hid in the back or something. Just like, hey, I'm not really here. I think I wasn't out at the time, so like I didn't really like want to be there, but like I would go because some of my friends would go.
Did you have queer friends?
A couple, yeah.
Do you remember any of your high school classes being queer or trans inclusive?
Not at all, no.
You don't remember learning anything about queerness in high school?
Mm-hmm.
Anything about like what it meant to be disabled?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
How about like Latinx experiences, history? Nothing.
No. Just really interesting because I think like 60% of the population at my high school was like Latinx.
Oh. Huh. Well, upon reflection, what is that? How does that make you feel? I guess about the fact that you said no to all of those questions. Does it feel off?
Funding, maybe.
Huh?
Lack of funding.
Lack
Maybe.
of funding.
I hope
Do you
that
wish
was
you
the
were-
only reason.
Do you wish you would have learned some of this stuff in high school? Do you wish your classes had been more inclusive in the curriculum?
I don't know if the reason I didn't learn them was just because I wasn't paying attention or if there really wasn't there. It's hard to tell, to be honest.
I can imagine that. Yeah, I can imagine it being a combination, but
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're checked out, then whatever mentions there were of any of these topics might have just sort of floated past you, right? Or you just weren't present for them or something like that. But it also might be indicative of the fact that they didn't go in into very much depth, right?
Yeah.
If you missed it or you don't remember any of that.
Yeah. It's interesting, my brother who's like 19, he's like 13 years younger than me, he like just graduated high school. He like talks about queer people and like in his high school, like it's not that big of a deal, he just like, so and so is queer, so and so is trans, and like he'll just say this like he's just talking about someone who just has like brown hair or something, and it's like things weren't like that when I was in high school. Like people didn't come out. If people came out, it was just like, hey, that person's gay.
It's amazing the difference in
Yeah.
just a decade.
Yeah, it's just like it's amazing.
So did you go to college right after high school?
No, I waited some time because I didn't like school in high school, so I wasn't sure that I was going to go to college.
What made you decide ultimately to go to college, and why community college?
Well, community college because of my grades. um, and I guess I always wanted to go to college. I just like I guess I just put it off because of my mental health. So once I got better, I finally decided to go for it.
How old were you when you started going?
Shoot, sometime in my early 20s, I guess. But at first, I didn't really take it seriously. I was just taking like art classes for fun.
And how do you do in your classes?
Pretty well.
Anything like A's and B's?
Yeah.
Do you ever find that you're struggling in your classes at all?
Sometimes, but I usually manage.
Have you had to drop classes or have you failed classes?
Earlier when I was starting college, I used to do that, but I've gotten better at it.
So what do you like most about being a college student?
I like learning.
Yeah.
I'm a total nerd.
So do you think your queerness will influence what you end up doing for your career after college?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say maybe?
Well, I figure that it'll have some say over my life, one way or another.
Mm-hmm. So have you consistently been in college since your early 20s, or have you taken breaks?
No, I've taken breaks.
Okay. Have you ever taken classes that touch on queer and trans topics or focus on queer and trans topics?
I've taken a human sexuality class.
Psychology?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how was that class in terms of how it covered queer and trans topics?
It went pretty in depth. I was actually disappointed because I didn't learn anything new. I was like, I already knew all this stuff. I should have taken a different class.
Did it talk about transness, or was it mainly about sexual orientation?
Yeah, it talked about both.
Okay. So you felt like it was fairly in depth, but you had the sort of the knowledge that was
Yeah, I mostly had all the knowledge already, so I was kind of like, oh, should have gone for something else.
If you could, do you think you would take courses that focus on queer and trans topics?
I would, but like maybe on something that I'm not already informed on. I would rather learn something new than.
So what shape do you think? What do you think that class would be? Something that feels like you would learn something new. Like when you hear Intro to LGBTQ Studies, does that sound like a class?
Maybe. I don't like. I would like to learn more about like the history of about the LGBT history, about the community, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, if you had the opportunity to take a class like that, you think you might?
Maybe.
And why do you think it might be important to offer classes that actually focus on queer and trans topics?
I think it's important to know your roots.
So have faculty done anything in their classes? So in classes that don't focus on queer and trans topics, have they done anything to make you feel included or excluded, as it may be? Not really.
No.
No, not included or excluded, just sort of,
Just kind of,
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had experiences being, you said you're mainly taking online classes?
for the most part, yeah.
Are they largely asynchronous, or you also do Zoom sessions?
For the most part, they're asynchronous.
Okay. Have you had experiences being misgendered?
Yes, most people assume I am a cisgender male, actually,
Mm-hmm.
based on my appearance.
And so, what's your response when that happens?
I don't know. I have the tendency to brush it off instead of correcting people. Sometimes I correct people if, like, I get the opportunity to, but sometimes it just feels that it happens so often that I just kind of like, whatever.
It feels hard to correct people every single time.
Yeah.
So, when you have been misgendered, has it been other students, faculty, both?
But yeah.
Okay. And what does it feel like to you to be misgendered?
I don't know. I just feel like, am I being annoying if I correct people? Like,
Would you rather not be misgendered?
that'd be nice, but yeah, most people usually forget about the they them pronouns, so it's pretty common to be misgendered when you're non-binary, I guess.
Do you think there's anything that faculty, staff, and students can do to learn how to use the correct pronouns?
I don't know. Not assume, I guess.
To what extent do you think that Sac City College upholds the binary, the gender binary? Is there anything that you can think of that the college should do to make non-binary students feel more welcome and included in particular?
I don't know. Maybe gender inclusive bathrooms.
And why is that important? Gender inclusive bathrooms.
It's kind of awkward going into gendered bathrooms.
Have you ever felt like uncomfortable, harassed, like afraid even going into gendered bathrooms?
I wouldn't say afraid. It's just like awkward. Like I feel like people do a double take when I walk into a woman's bathroom, which is understandable when I walk in there with a beard.
Have you had trouble finding all gender bathrooms or gender inclusive bathrooms?
I think there's like two on the campus, and they're like at opposite ends of the campus. And the times I've tried going into them, they've been locked.
Oh no.
So it's not so much that I've struggled finding them. It's just that they're not available.
Do you wish that the college would provide gender inclusive bathrooms?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Do you ever feel like you don't go to the bathroom, or you try to avoid using the bathroom because you can't get access to a gender inclusive bathroom?
Sometimes, but I mean that's true of like everywhere, not just the school. Like,
Do you think that if the college or the district is trying to sort of send a signal, right, send a message to queer, trans, non-binary students that they should feel welcome, included, right, cared about? Do you think, establishing more gender inclusive bathrooms is an important part of that effort?
yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. So, how important is community for your own sense of well-being at Sacramento City College, or maybe just generally?
Um, I know there's like an LGBT club, but I haven't been to it. I think it's just because I live in Woodland, and struggle coming out here.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the queer student club on campus. If it were accessible, is that something that you'd be interested in getting involved in? Maybe.
Definitely.
How else do you find community? How do you find friendships, just in general, whether or not it's about queer friends and queer community?
Right now, I think my life is kind of lacking that right now. It's lacking that. But I think it's just because I'm so busy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like you want more community?
Yeah.
What kind of community do you feel like you want, or where do you think you might find community?
Not sure where I would find it, but I would definitely want more like queer community.
Yeah, there's a queer straight alliance on campus. Do you think that community is important for your sense of well-being as a student?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. How come?
I think it's an important part of like college.
Mm-hmm. Do you find community in your classroom sometimes? Or in your classes?
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to find community in online classes?
When I find it in the classes I take in person.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess one last question. A question about community in Sacramento. Have you ever sought out queer community in Sacramento outside of campus?
I think last time I tried was right before the pandemic started, so obviously it was a problem.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried since then, so I should probably try that again.
There's the Lavender Library. Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
They have some great events. Probably been a couple of times. I do see their events, and they look really great. So what's in store for you in the future?
Keep going to school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe get my driver's license.
You're majoring in computer science. Do you think you want to do something ultimately, like get a job in tech? Something like that?
Yeah. Maybe video games. That's funny how 10 years ago, if you said that would have sounded insane.
That's true.
I'm still not used to saying that.
Do you play video games?
Yeah. It's so weird that it's not considered a waste of time now.
Yeah. Do you ever seek out community among other Latinx students specifically?
I guess I could try doing that as well.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
Have you heard of the Puente program?
I think somebody else told me about it, but I'm not really sure what it is.
It's a kind of a cohort program where you take classes with other students who are also Latinx, and so you get to know each other that way. And then you have extra support from faculty and counselors to help you be successful in your classes, and they have educational and social events and like field trips to different colleges and universities. And they also have a mentorship program. So there's somebody that's there to sort of like help you navigate college and like figure things out.
Yeah.
It's pretty robust. There's also something at ARC that's starting up in the fall called the Pride Learning Community, but that's just getting started. And it's so it's basically for queer students, but it's the only learning community in the district specifically for queer students, and that's at ARC.
Okay.
One day I think it's at every college.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.